series. I understand there are some people that have never been to the courthouse here before, and I want to welcome you especially. This was the original 1859 courtroom, not the location, used to be down with the city hall. Loren Delaney, gosh, how many years have we known Loren Delaney? He was used to teach math with my wife to the kids out at Celilo Village. He was a teacher at Columbia Gorge Community College, several other things before that, but his claim to fame today is that he grew up right here in the area, and his childhood in Wishram, and knows that North Side Railroad very well. He's going to tell us all about it. He's been doing some interesting research, especially at the Discovery Center, and has uncovered some wonderful pictures to show us. So big welcome to Loren Delaney.
Seem like it's working?
It is, and the microphone, this microphone is also working. So they'll let us know if they can't hear you downstairs, so speak up.
Okay. Welcome to my world. My world and many of your
Okay, they
experience.
can't hear you, so we're gonna have to have
What
you,
about this antenna?
what?
This one here.
Testing. Is it on?
Okay,
This is better? So, your world and my world.
Hold it up to your mouth.
You have to put it up to your mouth, and Dwayne wants you to stop wandering back here. You remember when I drew you the picture of church space?
Short leash. My life was so easy when I was younger. Okay.
yep.
Okay. Let's see, I think I'm supposed to speak like 45 minutes. I think after 40 minutes I'll get the hang of this. I like that picture. We're going to be talking about Haystack Butte. Oh, there's my friend again. Yeah. Haystack Butte is an old cinder cone. It's a miniature volcano, and we'll be talking about that. This was a big part of my playground, and on down here. And there is Wishram in the background. And normally when you see pictures of Celilo Falls, you see this, the big falls, and then another one over here, the two horseshoe falls. But that was really, really a small part of the falls. The falls went all the way under the Celilo Bridge, L-shaped, went east, and so the falls probably were like a mile and a half of falls. This is the first channel on the Oregon side. We had a small first channel on the Washington side where all us kids played. It was a pretty nice river in itself. The salmon didn't go up it, so nobody fished it for salmon. No Indians fished up there. And so it was pretty much left to the kids at Wishram. Steelhead came up, sturgeon came up, and we had a ball. Right there That's the big Horseshoe Falls. During low water, that falls dropped about 20 feet. And during high water in May and June, it dropped about 6 feet. And this is where the stern wheelers came down. When the stern wheelers were finished on the Upper Columbia, this is the Upper Columbia, all the way up to the Snake and Lewiston. When they had finished, this is where they came down. There were lots of boats came down the falls. Nobody could go up the falls, but they could come down, and normally there was damage, but they got them repaired. There's my friend. Reminds me, I never know where I'm going when I'm speaking, and so now that cat reminds me of a story. My mother come from, and my Aunt Nancy Anna came from Spray, Oregon, and they lived on the ranch and came down here to nurses training. And then I went up to Spray. One time I got a call, emergency, small school, nobody will come, we need a teacher, I'm not a teacher, I need an emergency certificate. And I didn't have any students that had perfect attendance, except one cat. Every day, that one cat came to my math class. And then he'd disappear for the rest of the day. I wouldn't see him again until it was time for math the next day. And he was there every day, and that cat reminded me of that story. I'm a wanderer. I just walk. You know,
But you have to know,
it's really hard. Okay, so the Columbia in those days was divided into the Upper Columbia for stern wheelers that worked that area. And then we had the Middle Columbia from Cascade Locks to the Dalles. And these stern wheelers were locked in these areas. And we also had the Lower Columbia, which went below the Cascade Locks out into the ocean. So it's 3 areas. There's a lot packed into this slide. There's one thing that I do not like about this slide. That's that part right there. I don't like it. If you keep your feet out, then I can't wander that way. You need to pin me in here. Yeah, if you could share out, put your feet there.
I'm gonna make you sit down.
I don't like that. Because Sandy Bissett here put together 90% of this program. She did virtually all the work. I'm doing the fun part. But this presentation is a direct result of all of her hard work. And okay, I don't mind if that were like down a little in lowercase letters, and Sandy's name was up there in big, bold, capital letters. I would do more of that.
Are you ready for the next slide?
Please.
Question here, just a second.
Oh,
Up on the, about halfway up on the right-hand side, what is that? Down a little bit, the concrete something there. Is that something to do with the locks or something?
yes, yes. It's something to do with the locks. Oh, and that's another thing I wanted to say. When I'm speaking, I appreciate what you just did. If you have a question, ask me now. Don't wait till the presentation is over and people are starting to wonder out. Ask me right now when I say it. If I say a lie, you know, wait a minute, no, that's not true. So, and if something is not clarified to,
Might I interrupt again,
yes.
since it's my program? When you get a question, repeat the question, because the people downstairs don't hear the question. And next time you step on my foot, I'm gonna kick you.
Go Sandy.
Next slide, please. Oh, in the beginning, there were 3 girls that went to nursing school here in the Dalles. We've got Nancy Anna, who is Barbie, wave your hand. Nancy Anna is Barbie's mother. Claudia is my mother. Oh. And I no more than got up the top of the steps and she said, Gopenar is spelled wrong. That should be G-O-C-H, no U. G-O-C-H-E-N-O-U-R. So they came down from Spray, and there's the hospital, the Dalles Hospital. And they were students,
Your chair just broke.
and they became RNs.
Your chair is broken.
This building is part of my prehistory. This building is really interesting to me. I feel a connection to this building because my mother and Nancy Anna lived here. Their apartment was here in the back. This building was where the Columbia Bank is now, and there was a stairway that came down from the hospital, and it was just a hop, skip, and a jump. Go from the hospital down to the boarding house. Wasn't the courthouse anymore. Now the old courthouse is a boarding house, and this is where my mother and my aunt lived. So I am walking. I'll be right back. I am walking on these boards that my mother and my aunt walked on. I am looking out these windows, because this was their apartment, and those are the windows that they looked out. So, okay, let's back up a little bit. Spray, Wheeler County, Oregon, because that's where these 2 girls came from. And then they had a friend by the name of June Bowers. They all became RNs. My mother and June, my mother married my father, Tim, and June married my uncle, Jimmy. And so we had 2 RNs in Wishram, plus my dad's sister Zelma went to school here, and she was an RN. So this was our medical staff in Wishram. But it's better than that, because the railroad provided us with a doctor who was also a pharmacist, Dr. Shorts. So we had a doctor, a pharmacist, and 3 RNs for this little community, and so we had plenty of medical advice. We got in trouble, we would go check with the RNs. Right there is where the girls were raised. This is looking out the kitchen door. Now, some of you are going to be able to relate to this very easily. There was no electricity. There was no running water. Right about there is a big hand pump. And we also had a little one in the kitchen. No refrigerators. See the corner of that building right there? That shed right there? You go in that door right there? It's full of ice. Grandpa would go down to the John Day River, spray, cut ice, and fill that room full of ice. And that would last us into June. And we had an ice box. But after that, it got really hot. And there was no refrigeration. So right there in that corner was a big box with a pan on top of it, and a gunny sack, and a rock. The pan was full of water, and it would siphon down through the gunny sack and keep things a little bit cool. And that's how we got through the hot days of the summer. Now, my grandfather, I'm a numbers person. My grandfather was a numbers person. So, from day one, I knew numbers were going to be really, really important to me. I hated my mother. She could be so mean. That lady right there. I had to go to first grade when I was 5 years old. I didn't want to go to first grade. I didn't want to go to second grade. I didn't want to go to any grade. Why did I have to go to school? Because all of my playmates, all of my friends were 6 years old, and they were going to first grade, so my mother sent me to first grade. One of my unhappy days. So, now grandfather, pretty smart guy, right through that light right there. Can you see the corner of the little building? That was the outhouse. Now, I've been in a lot of outhouses, but I've never been in one like that. It was a two-holer. Grandpa made two holes, one for us little kids and one for the adults. So, very, very considerate of grandfather, because that big hole just scared the gee whiz out of me. I never wanted to sit in that hole. And in those days, there was no such thing as toilet paper. It was the Sears catalog, which was fine in the beginning, because some of you are chuckling, some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. When you first were through with the catalog, the index pages were a whole lot like today's toilet paper. And so that wasn't too bad. But when the index papers were gone, you were left with the slick papers. Now, if you want to know what I went through, can you experiment with the slick, get a magazine, get anything with slick papers, and see what a chore that was. It was terrible. Okay, so they came down here. Here's Wishram, modern Wishram pretty much. Now here's the falls. Does anybody recognize this V right there? Can you identify that V for me? That's Fairbanks Gap. The Missoula floods, when the water came down, it went through that gap right there in the 15-mile creek and then come back around into the river.
Yep.
So. Right there, you can see the Horseshoe Falls where the Norma went over the last time on her journey back to Portland after she was done. Fun store. And then they added on the doctor's office, where Dr. Shorts was, and a barber shop. We had everything. We had everything over there. Great big park. It was just really nice. Behind my father is Platt Hopkins. Platt Hopkins was a cousin. And he was the storekeeper. So, had all the supplies for the rip track, fixing box cars, and for the roundhouse, all the stuff that they needed. And he got promoted and went to Portland and became the head of the big storehouse in Portland. Now, there I am. There's my brother Daryl. So this was our family, my father, my mother, me, and my brother. Now, I can remember when I was 3 years old, terrible year. It was an awful, and I mean it. It was a really bad year. I was up on I'll back up. December 7th, 1941. It's my birthday. And my dad and I would walk from our house to Grandma's house. And I remember a lot of things really, really clearly. And if you ask me what I did the day before yesterday, I haven't got a clue. So that's Platt's house. And we're walking from my house, our house, to Grandma's house. And we get to Platt's house, and he comes running out, all excited. He's really excited, and he's yelling at my dad. It's a sunny day, it's reasonably warm, the wind's not blowing. My dad is on the roadside, I'm on the outside, and Platt tells my dad, Pearl Harbor's been bombed. The war is on. I remember that like yesterday. I didn't understand any of it. I didn't know what war meant, I didn't understand it, but I remember it happening, and then we went on to Grandma's house. 3 years old. Then, must come about March, after December. It's a Sunday, and Mother's gone. I don't know where Mother is. My dad's in the kitchen, and the front door is open, and I'm sitting there, and in front of me runs a scorpion. I let out a blood-curdling yell. I was so scared. Mother should have been home. Mother was an RN. She could have handled this. My dad could not handle it. He panicked. I panicked. He asked me where I'd been stung. Well, I hadn't been stung, and I didn't know where I'd been stung, and I was scared, and I was almost speechless. So what did my dad do? We went down to Doc Short's. We went to the doctor. And Doc Shorts couldn't figure out where I'd been stung. But he gave us some salve, gave us a little medicine, and sent us back home. That would never have happened if Mother had been home. Then we get to, that's March, so then we get to about June, and Mother's out in the street visiting with Mabel Terhune. And I wandered down towards the store. Now, I am afraid of Skeeter Beale. Skeeter Beale is probably a little younger than I am, and he has red hair, and he is really mean. And I am really afraid of Skeeter. And so I get down in front of Skeeter's house, and Skeeter comes out, and he's gonna beat the you-know-what out of me, and I'm terrified. And I turn around and I run as hard as I can, because Mother's just up the street a little ways talking to Mabel. And I get to my mother, and she looks at me, and she says, "Loren, if you don't beat Skeeter up, I'm going to give you a licking." Holy smoke. I knew her licking would be worse than what Skeeter could do to me. So I turned around, and I took off after Skeeter. Well, Skeeter had never seen me like that, and he got scared, and he turned around, and he ran home, right down the canyon there, and we get to Skeeter's house, and his mother comes out, and oh, is she mad at me? And I'm picking on Skeeter, and blah, 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 and oh my gosh, what am I into? But anyway, that really helped my confidence a lot. I was never afraid of Skeeter again, and I could go up and down the canyon anywhere I wanted. Then, September came, and we were at the ranch, and my grandfather died. This was the first death that I was ever involved with, and it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. So, before we went to, I learned a lot. Being 3 years old, I learned a lot. I got mad at my mother. This would have been before we went to ranch. And my mother and I got along really good. We just never had any trouble. Except, I was an outside person. I belonged outside. And I wanted to go outside and play, and she didn't want me to go outside and play. And I couldn't understand it, and I was really mad. So I fixed her. She was in the front room. I went into the kitchen and got a chair and climbed up on the drain board, opened the cupboard. Every morning I had hot chocolate in my favorite little red cup and saucer. I'll fix her. I got up there, opened that cupboard, and got my little red cup, and I threw it down on the kitchen floor, and it broke into 1,000 pieces. And immediately I understood that that was incredibly stupid. Why did I break my cup? Why didn't I get her cup and break it? So that was a learning experience. I never did that again.
Are you about ready?
I'm ready. This slide I like. It wasn't that easy to get from the Dalles to Wishram to the Dalles. My mother didn't drive. My dad worked from 8 o'clock in the morning till 6 o'clock in the evening from Monday through Saturday. So he had one day off. And so Mother and I would catch the train at about 11:30, and I think we have another picture. was North Dalles in those days. North Dalles, and there's the depot right there. And here's the old military road. So we'd come out of the depot and walk down and get on the ferry, and it looks to me like they're running 2 ferries that day. And we get on the ferry and we come to the Dalles, and we go to the doctor, we go to the dentist, we go shopping, we would do whatever we had to do. We would visit Nanciana, and then we would catch the train about 4:30 or so back to Wishram.
Isn't, North Dalles, Dallesport now?
Yes. And before that, it was Grand Dalles. It was Grand Dalles, and then it was North Dalles, and then it was Dalles. Well, even before that, what was it? Rockland. Yes, that was the county seat. This is where all the power was. Goldendale really didn't exist. So this is the ferry. I've been on that ferry many, many times. And I came over when I was 7 and stayed with Nanciana and did swimming lessons. And we'd get on the ferry to go home. And I wasn't a bit worried. This ferry goes down, I can swim now. I'll just swim ashore. There won't be any problem now. I know how to swim. Now, I want to ask you a question. I've asked a lot of people this, and nobody seems to know, except me. And I know I can't be the only one. When the ferry landed, and you went up the grade on Union Street, right at the top was the dog pound. Does anybody remember the dog pound? There were all these dogs running around, like Home at Last. Nobody seems to remember that but me. I wonder if I made that up. Next. Okay. This basically is what we're talking about today, right in here. This is the Dalles, this is Grand Dalles, and we get up here with the chutes. So this was pretty much my area right in here growing up. My grandfather was a numbers person. I am a numbers person. So I know the SPNS starts in Portland. That's 0. Everything is identified on the railroad by mileage numbers. And there's always some kind of identification mark. And north, let's see, Portland is 0, Vancouver is 10, North Dalles is 94. 94 miles on the railroad from Portland. Avery is 103. Celilo Bridge, 105. Wishram, 106. Clark, 107.6. Then we have tunnel number 12, 108.2. And Mary Hill's 114. And Cliffs is 119. So I kind of always know where I am. I know that the Dalles is about 100 feet below sea level, because when I crossed the ferry and we came up Union Street and I looked over there and I saw the UP depot, it said the Dalles elevation 98 feet. Now you go downtown on Federal and the Veteran Services facing First Street says 100 feet. So that's about what the Dalles is downtown, about 100 feet. And Wishram is 176 feet. So there's a 76-foot drop from Wishram to the Dalles, and that's why we have the Dalles Dam. Such a tremendous. Wishram is 106. North Dalles is 94. So in 12 miles, we're dropping 76 feet, which is a huge drop. Which means, if you look out at the Dalles Dam, from the water level behind the dam to below the dam, that's about 75 feet. So, and remember Haystack Butte? I know that's about just a little less than 3,000 feet. Goldale's probably 1,500 feet. I know Bickleton is a little less than 3,000 feet. I know Condon is probably a little less than 3,000 feet. So I kind of know the mileage, I kind of know the horizontal, and I kind of know the vertical. I kind of know where I am.
You ready?
Ready. Okay, there's Wishram. Now there's the Celilo Railroad Bridge. And right there, that's that big horseshoe falls that you see in all the pictures. That's where the Norma went down over the falls to get back to Portland with very little damage. This was our playground right here. Now, we were either up in those hills over there, or we were down here on the river. Day after day after day. And we had a great swimming hole called the Pothole. What's the next slide? Maybe we can back
The
up.
railroad stations.
Hmm?
Stations.
Okay, all right, 8-0, right there. North Dalles Depot. That's where Mother and I got off the train there at North Dalles and walked down to the ferry. So that was it. And there's the depot at Wishram, 176 feet in elevation. And this is very interesting here, Avery, the Avery siding. If you drive from the Dalles up to Celilo or the mouth of the Deschutes, you can virtually see everything that I'm talking about. If you're over here and you're looking across, if you go up to Cirrhosis Park, that's a good place. The only thing you can see from the Dalles is the mouth of the Columbia Gorge and Haystack Butte on the east. Then it makes a bend and then you can't see any. So that was my area. Now Avery, you've probably seen that great big gravel pit there at Avery. That's basically where the ballast came from for the Oregon Trunk Railroad. They brought the gondolas down there, loaded them with ballast, took them up to halfway between Wishram and the tunnel was Clark. And they ferried that stuff across. So Avery is just a siding, but it's really, really important because of that gravel pit and the impact it had on the history of the Oregon Trunk Railroad. Ready? Fall Bridge. There's virtually no town here. The railroad moves in. Look at this. This is the way we lived. Sand, 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 sand. This was just a great big sand blow, all left by the Missoula floods. We had no dirt, we had no soil, we had sand, 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 and there was no way to keep it out of your houses. There's Haystack, there's Haystack Butte. The cinder cone. There's tunnel number 12 right there. And right there is Clark. Clark is there, and Wishram is here, except it's Fallbridge now.
No, it's Wishram now.
Now at this time. That's
Ready?
ready. Yes, yes. Okay, there's Clark.
That's the town.
Real impressive place. An old NP boxcar. There's the tunnel, and there's a train coming. So Clark is right in here. Now, every now and then I see people get run over by trains. There's no reason to get run over by a train. That's tunnel number 12. I've been through that tunnel many, many times. So what do? You're in the middle of the tunnel. I mean, this is bigger than a football field. When the train comes, what do? You just lay down alongside the tracks. And those trains are above you. You'll be below the rails. You just lay down. Plug your ears because it's going to be really noisy in there. Same thing with the trestle. I walked one night from Neenah to Maupin. That's 10 miles. And we started walking about 11:30. That's another story. But we crossed many trestles. What if a train came? You just lay down on the ties alongside the rails. Train will never hit you. Just don't panic. Just lay down. That is Miller's Island there. Right here between Miller's Island, this body of water here, that's the main flow, even today, of the Columbia River. Most of the water comes over here on this side. So you get over on the Deschutes River side, it's much, much more shallow. Ready?
What was the reason for
I'll tell you right now. The question is, what was the reason for Clark? Why was there a Clark? There was a Clark because of these two fellas. There was a Clark because of Hill and the Great Northern and Northern Pacific Railroads, and they wanted to build a railroad up the North Bank on the other side. And so they surveyed and surveyed and surveyed, and the only way they could get a 2% grade was go up the Deschutes River. So that's why there's Clark. And that's why they had to get the Norma. Clark is Washington, Oregon Trunk is Oregon. How are you going to get all that equipment and then across the Columbia River? So you had to have a boat and barges, and so Clark was best place. It's below Miller's Island, so, and you don't want to get down too far towards the falls, so that was a perfect place. That's why there was a Clark, and there wasn't a Clark very long. So, 2% grade. Now, Harriman, I think he had more railroads, he had more access. They were trying to get to California, which was going to be no problem for Harriman, but it was a problem for Hill because his railroads were to the north, and he did not have access to California. And they knew sooner or later Central Oregon and California were going to be really, really important. And so everything was done in extreme secrecy. Bill found out about it, and so, Harriman found out about it, and so then he was forced to start the railroad up the east side of the Deschutes. And then we had these railroad wars, and they went at it for quite a while. And finally, they just all compromised, and they shared the Deschutes. But it was because of this man here that a lot of the things that happened across the river and happened here was because of this man. Now, Harriman, UP, they could just bring their stuff up from Portland along the tracks. They could just haul stuff in, so it was much easier for them. So, I'm not sure how things would have turned out if it hadn't been for these two. But they were the driving force in that time period of what happened here. Ready? See that right there? That's Haystack Butte. Haystack Butte. This is the Deschutes River, and right down there near the mouth of the Deschutes Rivers is Moody, and that's where they brought in all this stuff. So we had Fall Bridge, which later became Wishram. We had Moody, which was the marshalling yards for all this railroad equipment. We had Clone, which you people here in the Dalles mostly call Bridge. Any questions? And Cologne is a Chinook Indian word meaning three, because it was the third station. And then you go to Lockett. That's the Chinook word for four. And Cinnamox. Cinnamox was the Indian word for seven. Next. And there she is, the Norma, the grand old lady. The Norma was built in Huntington, Oregon in 1891. Why? Because Albert Kleinschmidt was a very wealthy miner. He had mines in western Montana. He had lots of money. He needed a boat. He needed a big boat to haul his ore from the Seven Devils in the Hells Canyon. It's the Seven Devils. And up to Huntington. And so he got the best boat builder he could find, one that was really, really famous, and that was Jacob Kamm, Kamm. And he built this boat, sternwheeler. This did not work out at all. What happened was the Oregon Short Line went across the Snake River near Huntington, and they built a bridge, a low bridge, and the Norma couldn't get under it. So now this went to court, this was a big thing. But worse than that, at that time was, the mine at Seven Devils was a copper mine, and copper prices plunged. And so he couldn't make any money with this mine, so he just let the Norma go. So the Norma bounced around for several years, different owners, and then they decided that, oh, this is a fine boat. It's gotta go down Hell's Canyon. The only boat that had ever gone down Hell's Canyon was the Shoshone. And they had a terrible experience. They made it, there was a lot of damage. Now, Captain Gray was one of the best captains on the river. And so Captain Gray brought the Norma down. They did have some trouble. The boat was built in 1891 and just sat idle to 1895, not doing anything, before it went down Hell's Canyon. And it made it with the, well, for one thing, when did the Norma go over Celilo Falls? During high water. So Captain Gray waited until the water was really, really high and brought the Norma down. And from about 1895 to 1908, the Norma was going back and forth from Celilo to Lewis, hauling wheat down and all kinds of supplies up. So that went well for the Norma. And then, another picture. This is Clark.
Baldwin. That's a Baldwin locomotive.
Yes, you're right. You're right. This is the Moody Landing. Now, what they did, they had these trestles. Look how long this thing is. So they went way out in the river, and they went up and down. They could handle high water. They could handle from, we'll say, 0 feet, which would be normal, low water, to 22 feet. The river would have to rise over 22 feet before they couldn't use these things. There's the Norma. Those are boxcars. There were 2 barges. One held 8 cars, one held 6 cars. And back and forth they went. Notice the wind is blowing a bit. It does blow on the Columbia occasionally. That's a west wind. Those are boxcars. But a lot of the cars were gondolas from Avery full of rocks, ballast. And the Norma went back and forth. Took about 35 minutes to go one way. And the Norma worked 24 hours a day, hauling all this stuff for the construction of the Oregon Trunk Railroad. Not only that, I mean, there were about 4,000 workers. This boat was licensed for 150 passengers. And frequently it was full of passengers and equipment. So the Norma was really, really busy. Next. Okay, this is the Norma right here. Notice this. Notice that trestle going out into the river. You can see exactly where this is if you want to drive up the river. See this cliff here? That's tunnel number 1. So you are just east of tunnel number 1. You're between tunnel number 1 and the mouth of the chutes when the Norma hit a rock. Put a little hole there, and that's what happened. So the Twin Cities was another stern wheeler, not too far away. They brought the stern wheeler down, the Twin Cities. They brought the Twin Cities down and tied up alongside the Norma, and they patched it up. And then the Oregon trunk bought her, and then she was busy going back and forth. Okay, this is really a good picture of the falls, except the Horseshoe Falls. This going all the way across here, and then up. So the falls were L-shaped, and they must have been like 1.5 miles. It was a huge falls. Yes.
What year was that picture taken?
I'm going, okay, I don't know exactly, but I will tell you it was after 1912. I'm going to say, could have been 1914, somewhere in there. It's an old picture, so I know, but I know it was after 1912, because the bridge wasn't finished until January 7th, 1912, and that caused the demise of the Norma. Because once the bridge was built, there was no need for the Norma anymore. So then the Norma hung around, okay, so by January 8th, January 9th, January 10th, trains were running back and forth, and the Norma just tied up, didn't have anything to do, but this is low water. Norma's going nowhere. So then when May and June come along, and we're into high water, then the Norma went down the Horseshoe Falls with her barges, Portland. And one thing I've noticed about these stern wheelers, very, very, very fragile, very fragile. So they were always banged up, they were always being repaired, but not the engines. Those engines were unbelievable. They were unbelievably powerful. So once the stern wheeler was abandoned or wrecked, they salvaged the engines.
So the canal was built before the bridge then? The
No.
Dalles Celilo Canal? About 1909?
Is that right?
I think so. I think that's their pictures about that.
It's on the tip of my tongue.
I believe it was completed 1915.
I think that's the number right now. I think 1915
For the canal?
for the canal.
For the canal.
Yes, I think it was 1915.
I don't know how high they raised that, but for the Dalles Dam, they raised that maybe 6 to 8 feet, maybe more than that, I don't know, but they ran trains over it all the time.
Never stopped a train.
Kansas City Bridge was there, and they just kept working on it, raised a little
It
bit.
was amazing. Now, I've been out on that bridge many, many, many times, many times. What did I do when a train came? I went down on those piers. It was really nice under those piers. You were safe. There was a lot of metal, they were big, so you didn't worry about falling off the pier. So, yes. I remember I would go out, I could walk right to there. It was very, very noisy. Question.
Did they put the lift on the bridge after the Dalles Dam was put in? Or was that during the lift, during the time when they had the, canal?
I think the lift came later because they had the canal.
Okay,
They were going through the canal, and that was a turn span.
okay. Okay.
I would go out there, I would walk, and the falls were very, very noisy. You could hardly hear yourself think, and the spray, there would be all kinds of spray going up in the air, and there would be hundreds of little tiny rainbows. And it was beautiful. Couldn't hear anything, but what you could see was really beautiful. And we would go out there. Sometimes there were cable ladders that you could go down from the top of the bridge down to the rocks. And we crawled out, we'd go down those ladders. And the Indians would be fishing, and they'd want to go back to Celilo. And they would have too many fish, and they would have a pulley, ropes, and they would ask us to pull the fish up to the top of the bridge, and then they could walk to Celilo, and they would give us fish. And then, I mentioned it before, the wind does blow here occasionally. It was kind of scary. You had to know what you were doing. Not everybody would do it. You would start down those cable ladders, and the wind would whip you out over the falls. All right, so here you are, hanging on, and you're out over the falls. You know the dust is going to let up, and you're going to come crashing back against the pier. So you would lean way, way back, so your feet hit first. And then you were okay.